welcome to the Ring of Democracy. We're a non-political and nonprofit organization, and I'm Stacy, and alongside Volma, and we're Assembly Kevin McCarty here. We are in the process of conducting these sit-downs because we want to democratize the electoral process so you can get to know your candidates better. So.
Yes, like Stacy said, as we dive into a process to further democratize our electoral process, wanted to sit with you, Mr. McCarty, to just have some conversations around your candidacy for mayor of Sacramento. I think it's a huge deal that you're running for mayor, and like everyone else running. And we wanted to just dive into the questions, but before we get started, we wanted to give you a minute or two to just basically, dive into the reasons you're running for mayor and your passion for, this great city of ours.
Yeah. Well, you said nothing's political. Everything's political. That's why decisions impact our lives. That's why I'm in this. I chose this path for me to help people, help communities. We're out here in North Sacramento. I remember my mom came here as an immigrant, lived out here as an 18-year-old, and made it here in America because of public programs and after-school programs for us and college opportunity for her. So, I truly believe that that government can help people change their lives and make a difference. And so that's why I serve in public office. And running for mayor is just a continuation of kind of what I've always done, is try to help people, help communities, help working people make a difference in our city of Sacramento. And I love my job in the legislature, in the assembly, but I love Sacramento even more. That's what I say. So that's why I'm running for this office. Is that I see there's a lot of need in Sacramento, but I'm not, a Sacramento sucks type candidate. I know some people are running for mayor just poo-pooing on Sacramento. Everything's terrible. Yeah, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of good. We have a lot of amazing people, neighborhoods, community organizations. So I'm trying to build upon that and move Sacramento forward.
All right.
Oh, thank you. Did you want to ask the first question, or can I go?
I will go first. So, in terms of our conversation, the first question I have for you is, what specific measures, since being in the office and being working for District 6, have you implemented so far that you want to talk about, that you want to share with our community members?
Well, I think government and politics is about results and solving problems. Big problems and small problems. I've worked on authoring legislation to curtail gun violence, to expand programs for youth and after school programs, some are major statewide issues, but some of the things I really am excited about are things I've done here locally. Like my favorite example in my whole political career was a neighborhood in South Sacramento that didn't have a baseball league, and when I got in office, we're like, you know what, I want you to help us bring back Little League. And I was like, okay, I got it. And I got elected, and I was like, holy, cuss word. Like, what am I gonna do? So I went and just, became scrappy and looked around and found like a baseball program that the Giants fund, the SF Giants in San Francisco. And I brought it here to Sacramento. And we've had it there for 19 years, called Junior Giants. Now it's up here in North Sac too. And there's like 10,000 people that have played for free. So that's just a little problem, and look for solutions. And so, I have dozens of those. I don't have all the time to go over them, examples, but I think that's kind of what I'm about, is looking one problem at a time, looking for real practical solutions to these issues.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So in Sacramento, homelessness is a huge issue. I moved to Sacramento about 7 years ago. When I moved here, homelessness wasn't what it is now. If you go downtown, it plagues the whole place. Like the rivers, like it's just a huge issue. So, what steps are you going to take or have taken to help solve this huge issue of homelessness?
Yeah, well, I've been in the assembly 10 years, and I was on the city council for 10 years. So when I was a city council member, just 10 years ago, homeless wasn't an issue. We didn't spend one penny on homeless. Never came up at a city council meeting. Never came up when I was campaigning over the years. It just wasn't a city issue. Now it's the issue. It's the only issue people talk about, whether I'm in North Sacramento, Land Park, Oak Park, downtown, throughout Natomas, at whole Sacramento. It's the issue. It's an issue that's not just Sacramento. It's big cities across America. Here in California, we have it pretty bad, in large part because our cost of living is so high that people are getting squeezed out and unfortunately falling into homelessness because of economics. There's a lot of people in the streets that have a lot of challenges and this triangle with mental health, addiction. Certainly poverty is a big player in that, and so there's no easy solution, but sweeping it under the rug is not the answer, and the city's saying, well, that's the county's problem. That's not the answer either, because it's all of our problems. We all need to work on this together. So I think we need more cooperation amongst governments, not suing each other and pointing fingers. I do think that sometimes government lets the perfect be the enemy of the good. They look for the perfect solution, not the good one. And I use an example on the whole campaign trails. A couple of years ago, I was really hot that our parkway is just kind of being, destroyed in some parts of it with just fires and campsites all up and down the American River Parkway. And, people out there are camping because they're homeless. And so the county says, hey, help us get some money in the budget, and we'll build some emergency shelter next to the parkway, get people off the parkway. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So they said, help us get in the budget $10 million. I was like, okay. So I got in the budget that year $25 million, more than double what they asked. They said 10, I said, how about 25? That's going to give even more solutions to the problem. And now we're going on 2 years, they haven't spent one penny because they're looking for the perfect solution. And so, I think that we've seen just bite the bullet and triage locations where people can camp, have their cars or motor homes, bring in some tiny homes in different locations, whether they're government-owned, nonprofit-owned, church-owned, and just really, it would be nice to have housing for everybody with indoor plumbing and showers and that, but how about some place where people can go, where there's trash cans and water and bathrooms and some services. Bring services over there that can address, healthcare needs and, mental health and addiction issues. And, I think that then we can get people stabilized and then off to another path, but just out of the parks, streets, and communities, which are impacting all of us, no matter where you live in Sacramento. So it's the reason that I became really frustrated, decided to run for mayor, is that, that example of the money that I had delivered. And also, I have kids, they go to high school, and last year they were in middle school, and they're walked home from school every day, and on the way home, almost to our house, when we go to the freeway, they have to go in the street and go around to get past, encampments. It's like, that's not good for 13-year-olds.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, what do you say to folks who say, the best way to clean some of this stuff is by arresting the homeless folks?
Well, I think we need to do two things. We need to say, one, we can't have urban camping. You can't just camp in the middle of a park in front of someone's business under a road that's public right away. You can't have urban camping. But, can I borrow a piece of paper? But I think the flip side, we need to go and tell people where they can go. So here's what I would do. It's like, this is the sheet. These are the 7 locations. So you go to individuals, like, you can't camp here, on Grant High School, sidewalk here. But here are the list, and these top 3 right now have spaces. So you need to go in one of these 3 spaces. You can't stay here. So it's two-pronged. 1, no urban camping. But 2, we need to tell people where they can go.
That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, from what we've observed, there is a lack of trust in the city and, in government. How would you proceed to gain the trust of the community members to address some of these issues, like homelessness, housing and affordability? So get everybody to work together and kind of solve these problems instead of just, like you said, trying to look for that perfect solution.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of trust probably for people who are homeless, who don't moved around. There's a lot of lack of trust for people who have been impacted because, they have homeless camps in front of their business and so forth. So that is, all across the board. I think just no more excuses. We need to just, find practical solutions. And I think too often we made it really hard. We have this go to city council members have to pick a side in their district, and they're not going to do that. They don't want to get thrown out of office. And so I actually like this new model where the city manager is picking sites throughout the city and just kind of, opening them up. It has authority to do just that. But a lot of times too, it's not always, I think, the government. We need to ask other people to help us. Like, for example, we're out here in the North area right now, and there's a woman who lives out here in North Sac who I gave an award to last year. Her name is Robin Moore, and her group here is called Safe Harbor Homes. And she got a piece of land in her backyard, like bought it from a remnant piece of land, and built with her own money like 5 little tiny homes and serves homeless kids and families, like on her own. So I'm thinking, why don't we look at that money that I gave the county just sitting there, other money, and go out and ask nonprofits and churches and urban league, like, hey, you may have some land here. Can you do 10 tiny homes? Can you open up, a safe ground area for people to camp? So I think we need to have, all kinds of solutions to this because the current path just isn't working.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So really quickly, can you discuss the after-school program and youth sport initiative you've championed? And seeing as mayor, how you would kind of continue something like that and that the focus on youth initiatives?
Yeah, well, like I started at the beginning, I'm a Sacramento, I'm a lifeguard group here, single parent mom with 4 kids, and she was going to school and working at night, and so we kind of raised ourselves. Our big sister took care of us, and it was like sports programs that kept us alive, not in trouble. So I know personally what they mean. Child care and after school programs, sports programs, they keep kids healthy and safe on the right track and help working parents with child care needs. And so it means so much to our youth. And I always say that, young people make up 50% of the present and 100% of the future. Our future is our young people. So my priorities in this campaign are housing, homelessness, and our youth. I think we need to focus in investing in our youth. One thing that I really want to do, which I think that my leadership as mayor, I think would be really helpful to our city, is helping draw down state money for programs. Like, for example, in the legislature, I wrote 2 transformational bills the last couple of years. One that makes it universal free preschool for every family, as a 4-year-old, and free universal after-school programs. And so the state's going to be giving out these monies to cities and nonprofits and school districts to expand these. And so we're afraid the state that they're not going to find enough providers to do this. So what I want to do as mayor is work with our nonprofits in the city to help identify entities that can serve kids and serve our youth, serve our families. So we can draw down state money that they're doling out left and right, and good for Sacramento, but more importantly, help families here locally. So, we have our Parks Department. We just passed this Measure L, taxing cannabis to expand youth programs, and I'm all for that. And we have programs, typically in youth programs. We also have programs for in our police department that deal with gun violence and keeping kids safe. So there's a lot of ways how we can help young people in Sacramento, and that's a big priority of mine.
Yeah, thank you. And the other thing I want to ask just around youth, folks don't pay attention to it, but young people deal with mental health on a large scale, mm-hmm. right? But in our school, in our community, there doesn't seem to be enough resources for kids to tap in, for young people to tap into access to mental health. What do you think can be done about that? And do you think, as mayor, that's a job the mayor should actually be looking at?
Yeah, it's a big issue, but I think we need to be careful not to overpromise what the city can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But just as far as the biggest issue, behavioral health is always a big issue for young people, especially the post-pandemic. I have 2 teenage kids. I know young people have been through the last few years during the pandemic and getting back in the swing of things. And luckily, our kids are kind of on their way. But it's not easy, being a young person these days. And I think that one of the positives in the last few years, mental health has become less of a stigma. It's no longer, the mental health place is around the corner. It's like if you're crazy, some other issues. It's no, like if you sprain your ankle or having heart pains or asthma, you go see a doctor, the health provider. It's same with mental health. It's like you go in there and see, the mental health provider. So cities clearly don't provide that. We don't run that. Our focus, like I said earlier, is in parks, youth programs, and police and fire. Those are where the cities spend 90% of their general fund budget. But what we do, we talk to people a lot. Like these after school programs, we see kids on a regular basis. And so I think what the city can do is a better connector to make sure that kids know where to go. Hey, are you having anxiety? Are you feeling stress? Are you depression? You ever, God forbid, have suicidal thoughts? You're not alone. You're not crazy. You can go get help. This is where you can go. So I think the city of Sacramento can partner on a lot of things, whether they're for young people or even older people and seniors. I think that's one of the things that we touch people on a regular basis more than any other branch of government is local government.
Okay, thank you. I know we kind of touched a little bit on trust in the community, and we were talking about the behavioral aspect in youth. But with trust and behavioral, there's also like I'll say public safety with policing. As mayor, if elected as mayor, how would you bring both of them together? Because the trust is really important. Behavior, police, to make sure that, the youth also, can trust the police more, or maybe they can get responses that are more focused on dealing with behaviors instead of just, the issues that they're called for,
Yeah, no, this is an issue that I care deeply about, and a lot of people running for mayor say they're for the X, Y, and Z, but this is something that I'm gonna say I'm for, but I've done it. I authored huge bills on police reform when they weren't popular. I literally have scars on my body from authoring bills and getting my butt kicked by the law enforcement union, but it took the death of Stephon Clark and frankly the death on TV of George Floyd for my bills to pass to bring about changing use of force standards when police use lethal force, to bring about independent investigations for officer involved shootings. That was my measure too. To have independent oversight of sheriff's departments. Sacramento sheriff, the sheriff here. Remember he locked the door to the guy who was in charge of the independent transparency unit for the sheriff's department. So I wrote a law saying you can't do that. You give that entity subpoena power. So I've done this over the years, and I'll do this as mayor. And I do support. We need to have a well-funded and well-staffed police department. I don't support defunding the police, but I think you can support police and demand accountability and transparency. So accountability is when an officer does cross the line, like right down the street. I'm the officer crossed the line with the Joseph Mann shooting right down here on Del Paso Boulevard. Saw it with on their own 2 eyes on video, and there wasn't accountability, and there was, I think, community distrust and outrage because people see these things now with their own 2 eyes. They heard about these things over the years, police misconduct. Now you can't run away from it. You see it. And when there is not accountability, I think it's bad for the community with trust, but also it's bad for the police department because most officers don't cross the line. So a few bad apples make it bad for everybody, and then they're not trusting the community. So it's not good for anybody. So I'll make sure that we implement laws on the books on accountability and transparency as well. One of the things that that's going on with the city recently that I find a bit troubling is there's a new law that says discipline records must be made public, and this city may or may not be following, making some of these discipline proceedings public, available. And so, I'll make sure I focus on that. But also, I think it's important that we continue to have community policing and having the community involved, but also de-escalation tactics to have, less, officer use of force that's above and beyond what's needed. For example, 2 years ago, the city of Sacramento paid out $25 million in lawsuits for excessive force. That's half of the deficit right now. Deficit for the city of Sacramento is $15 million. 1 year, $25 million, paying out excessive force claims. So, all these things are interrelated, and it's a priority that I'll work on, and it's something that I've worked on before. But again, I don't think it's either or. I don't think that you're anti-law enforcement, anti-police if you focus on accountability and transparency and trust.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. So, while we're on the topic of law enforcement, we want to talk about a little bit gun violence. It has been on the rise here, like especially after COVID, right? Like, and gang violence has been on the rise. As mayor, how do you see approaching the issues of both gang and gun violence? I mean, but they are interconnected, but how do you see addressing that?
Well, I guess this goes back to your question, is I have my opinions here what I want to work on, but this is my work too. I mean, this is stuff that I've been doing for 15, 20 years. I've authored probably 7 or 8 laws, 2 local city laws and 5 or 6 state laws on gun violence, gun safety laws. And every time I've been sued by the NRA or fought by the NRA, they give me an F grade, which is the best grade I've ever earned. Every year they give me an F grade, the NRA, so I'll proudly take that. Because it's about saving lives. And you can support the Second Amendment and support smart gun laws, right? Like reasonable background checks, right? When gun shows, to make sure they're doing proper background checks. And so you can have, smart gun laws, which, by the way, they're almost 99% of the time supported by law enforcement. Like all the laws that I push forward, our police chief in Sacramento, you know what? That's going to solve crime, get guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, and still enable lawfully owners to be able to own a firearm. So there's 2 things that I think the city of Sacramento should really step up with. One is domestic violence restraining orders, and going after people who have restraining orders and getting firearms from them, because more often than not, when you find an incident, especially family related, there's a restraining order involved. So I think some cities have really stepped up on that. But the issue that you really touches my heart is young kids, and firearms. I remember as a council member or police chief, used to call us when there was something terrible, and the phone rang and it was a police chief. I was like, oh crap, this is not a good call. And it was, somebody died. And there was a teenager who just break my heart. And so I always focus on how we can keep guns in the hands of young people. And I'm working on a proposal right now. It's a little bit legislative, but I would implement this as mayor as well, to focus on youth offenders with guns. And so, some people may know that in the justice system, if people get a drunk driving arrest or even a domestic violence arrest as part of their sentencing, they must have to do counseling, like DUI school or domestic violence counseling. So this idea that we have is if a young offender from 15 to 20 gets, somehow involved with a firearm, whether it's a kid or grad high schooler day or something involved as part of their sentencing. It's not just, hey, 18 months in juvenile hall or whatever. It should be part of a gun violence intervention class. So I'm working on this idea right now with our police chief and Tien Ho, and this project out here in the North area, the Brother to Brother that Merv Brookings runs, to have something like that here, working with young people. Because once you focus on the consequences of young people and illegal firearms, then maybe you can catch them before something worse happens.
Great. Do you have any questions, Stace?
No question, but I want to be respectful of your time, and we're gonna close out soon, but before we do, we want to invite you to take a minute or two and just let community members know why voting for you is important and why you're running. Again, just kind of closing out. You have the floor.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm just talking to you two, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Live too.
I know this is a very serious job,
Yeah.
and I think the stakes are so high, and I know all the people that are running. I know them all. I've worked with them all. They're all good people, and I firmly believe that I'm best suited to be effective for Sacramento, to make a difference, to have real solutions to our problems. I laid out issues with homelessness, housing, and gun violence, and after-school programs. And so I'm going to bring that experience that I've had working on these issues. I've been a city commissioner, I've been a council member, I've been an assembly member, always looking at problems and finding solutions. One of the recent ones I've been talking about is we're in the middle of this pandemic. We don't have enough people working downtown, and we're lacking affordable housing as well. So I wrote this law that's going to turn empty state offices into housing. So the first building is down there in Capitol Mall. The EDD building is going to be 500 units, 100% affordable. So, I think my record's about looking for real solutions to our problems in all neighborhoods throughout Sacramento. And that's what I've always been about, and that's why I'm doing this job. I'm a lifer in Sacramento. My kids are going to high school here, and I care about the future of Sacramento. So I love my job as Sacramento's assembly member, but I've been saying all along I love Sacramento even more, and I want to make sure we move forward and get solutions to our problems.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate the time. I know how busy you are, so we definitely appreciate you taking the time to speak to us and speak to us live. Hopefully we have an audience watching this right now.
Yes. Are we drawing as many as the New Heights podcast with the Kelsey brothers? Do we have enough people live on watching this as that?
I can't do
Yeah, no,
Probably not.
I doubt it.
Probably not.
But part of what we want to do though is not just for the live of it, right? It's for us to take this and because Verb is gonna do a great job with editing it and then make sure we circulate it to people who needs the information. For the way we see it is everyone has a phone in their hand,
Yeah.
right? Like the way to get information to people is by making sure they can catch it on their phone.
Yeah, and I guess the big picture is that people get information from all sources now. Your radio, TV, social media, and podcasts. And we need political participation from everybody.
From everyone,
Yeah,
that is correct.
we don't need perfect politics. That's a famous quote by Cesar Chavez. You need perfect political participation. So we want to get people engaged. And so, podcast listeners, whoever else, you can, learn about what's happening in our city, hear about candidates' ideas, but most importantly, you need to vote.
Yeah.
Please
Vote.
vote. This is going to be a low turnout, it looks like, for this presidential primary, not a huge push for the presidential election here in California kind of being wrapped up for Biden. So we're not going to have turnout like we've had in prior presidential elections. We do want people to show up. There's important city council races, assembly races, and of course the mayor's race.
Of course,
Indeed.
thank you, appreciate that.